Hi guys, hope you're well. I've got a really interesting guest today. It's someone that I met probably 2, 3 months ago. And one of the things I was very keen to do when I kind of started these kind of broadcasts was to speak to real people from real businesses who've got kind of great stories to tell. And likewise, people that I think people will kind of resonate with. Just give me one second. I learned in previous broadcasts that I have to mute YouTube on the screen because otherwise it starts coming back. So it's this learning curve that I'm still kind of going through. So I'm going to bring her in, then we're going to have a quick chat, and it's always to, kind of discussing about different things, different businesses go through, and just kind of have a really good kind of conversation. So Helena, would you like to say hi to everyone?
Hello, how's everyone doing?
Good, good. So how did we meet? So I must admit it was, if I can tell the story just as far as my kind of side, was that I put a post up after my first kind of month of business. It was almost a lot of my kind of learnings from the time, things I've been through, that kind of thing. And you commented on it, I believe, from memory.
Yeah.
And then there was a Northeast Times launch event, which was one, I think it was a Thursday morning, I think it was. And basically, I'd just been burgled the night before, so I was in a horrible mood. I'd had all my kind of camera equipment and stuff stolen. And we had a quick chat then, and then we followed up and we had a conversation at the incubator, the NatWest
Yeah,
one. And
yeah,
then I'll kind of touch on some of the other kind of stuff we've got in common a little bit. Like we both went to Sheffield Uni, and there's different things that just kind of came out through kind of conversation. So would you like to tell everyone a bit more about yourself and like your background?
yeah. So first and foremost, I kind of love adventures. That's what I'm mainly about. Um, Work to live and not the other way around. And yeah, I've got a really big passion for the outdoors, for just spending time outside. I find it's a place where you can just get a sort of level head, fresh air, exercise. It all just rolls into one, and it's that kind of place where everything just feels right, you know. And if you're having a um, bit of a struggle, a bit of a hard time, you know, you can go to the great outdoors and just hit that reset button. So that's really like who I kind of see myself as. Like my identity is someone who just loves to adventure, loves to explore, to travel, and to just get out there.
Wow. It's funny. Every interview I kind of do, I always have a set of questions and things that I kind of aim to start on, and it never goes the way I think it'll be. But almost that's one of the beauty and the nuance when you talk to different people. Obviously everyone has different, they take the conversation in different ways. But it's one of the things that I think I resonated with. I grew up a lot in I say the outdoors, as in the kind of, I was in Cubs and Scouts and Beavers, and I used to spend a lot of time in the Lake District and there's a scout camp in the northwest called Tordvale, and I spent most of my childhood kind of there. And then actually, as I went to uni, because I think again we both went to Sheffield Uni, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Because again,
And
Sheffield
that's right on the
is,
edge of the Peak District as well, so
yeah,
good
and
access there.
but because I think it's one of the things that I, in some ways, intentionally or not, ended up stopping doing some of the outdoor stuff. And it's not that I ever planned to or wanted to. It was just before I went to uni, I was very heavily involved in outdoorsy, scouty type stuff. But then at uni, it was more sports, it was drinking, it was socializing, it was lots of kind of different stuff. That I guess inherently, accidentally or not, I just kind of ended up doing, less outdoorsy stuff. We used to go on kind of long bike rides out into the peaks and that kind of thing as well. But okay, so if do you want to talk us through your journey? How you kind of almost, I guess, where did you grow up? How did you get through to Sheffield Union, and how did you progress on after that?
Yeah, so I grew up in Newcastle, was born here, and after finishing high school, went off to Sheffield Uni and did a degree in psychology, which I absolutely loved. But when I got to the end of the degree, I kind of felt a bit burnt out in terms of studying, and went traveling to get some space and kind of figure out the next steps. So I spent a year in New Zealand,
Okay, wow.
um, which basically just ticked all of the boxes for me, in terms of access to the outdoors, but they've got some really cool little cities as well. Um, I could just be that kind of backpacker bum. It was great.
I must
And
admit,
then
in a few weeks, I'm interviewing a guy called Craig Fenton, and he actually runs Google in the UK and Europe, and he's from New Zealand.
oh,
And
nice.
yeah, so again, a lot of the pre-ones are just getting my practice in. Before we came on camera, we were just talking about how every day I'm trying to learn to get better. But it's almost just, it's one of those things you kind of just improve and talk to people. But again, it's doing it with friendly faces and with a friendly crowd. Almost, it's like a business metaphor of not like being afraid to fail.
Yeah.
But actually, it's funny that the same places seem to come up as in Sheffield. And then actually some of the outdoorsy stuff like New Zealand and even some of the crossovers. And it could just be it's who I'm picking. So there's a complete bias there that it's not actually a complete coincidence. But it's somewhere like, what's it like as a place? Is it kind of the magical Lord of the Rings kind of place that everyone describes it to be, or not quite?
But, I'd never seen Lord of the Rings before I went. And do you know, it's a really strange thing. Why did I go to New Zealand? Because I just had it set that I was going there. I was walking around a careers fair in my final year of uni.
Was that in the Octagon, by the way?
I think it was, yeah. Walking around thinking, right, what on earth am I going to do? I love psychology, but I'm not sure that this is definitely the route that I want to go down. So I was walking around, chatting to different companies, looking at their stalls, trying to get some inspiration, and just feeling a bit wayward, like lost. Like, what do I do? Mm-hmm. And then there was a stall at the end for a company called Bunac about working abroad or doing things like Camp America. And it was just a case of like, you can go on a working holiday to somewhere like New Zealand. And I was like, yes, that is exactly what I want to do. So, it may be a cop out. I wasn't exactly planning my career by going, yes, I'll go to New Zealand. But I decided that I needed the time to try and figure out what I was going to do with my life. I think at that age you can feel a lot of pressure to kind of know or decide or create this definite plan that you're going to go down. And really, like, there's no set plan. It's fluid, it's dynamic, it can change. People change careers all the time. So I just decided at that point, like, screw it, I'm going traveling, which was amazing.
Because it's a separate conversation, but again, it's because part of the reason why I do that is I love having conversations with people, and also in many ways it's how I think it's also quite I say cathartic, but almost it helps you think through your own kind of journey in some strange ways. But I think you're right that when I was going through uni, I used to spend my summers working in construction, because that's almost what I was getting groomed to do project management. So I almost had a path kind of set out for me. But the truth is, nothing ever, you don't need to know in advance, if that makes sense. And I think often people put too much pressure on themselves about what am I going to do after uni, and a lot of my friends didn't. And again, at Sheffield, there used to be a travel agent called SCA Travel, I don't know if you remember it, and they used to have these brochures with all these magical locations, and you could backpack from India to China to wherever. And it always did appeal, but I never did it. And I think it's almost where, maybe one day when I'm kind of retired and I've got my stuff, but actually I think it was very brave to also have like the balls to follow your own journey and actually go backpacking and do that, because I probably wasn't brave enough to do it. And it's almost in hindsight as well, is that when I don't feel like I actually kind of properly grew up until after uni, if that makes sense. And I think that it all just depends on when people go. But it's great to kind of hear people's story, and then how. So you went to New Zealand, and then how did that progress through to kind of the next few years?
So when I came back from New Zealand, I spent a bit of time going through sort of Australia, Fiji on the way home.
Wow.
And kind of landed back in the UK at the start of April, thinking, it'll be spring, it'll be fine. I'd been kind of following summer at this point, and I seemed to have had about 8 months of really good weather on the trot. And I landed back in a gloomy, grey, rainy London. And it was just like, what have I done? Moved back home because I was skinned, and was just sort of faced with like, now what? But caught up with friends, and a good friend of mine at the time said, there's vacancies where I work. I think you'd be really good at it because of your psychology degree
Mm-hmm.
and your communication skills, talking to people, caring about people. And that job was with a service called Connections Direct, which I then worked in for several years and absolutely loved it. So I progressed from being an advisor to young people to becoming a manager, going through sort of management training, developing my own teams, having sort of 25 people that I would coach and manage and review their performance monthly, annually, and also kind of liaise with the government clients as well in terms of how the service was developing. And it was a really, really, really good atmosphere, great place to work, brilliant teams of people to work with. And then I changed to a couple of different services. There were always government contracts, so things like the National Citizen Service, one of the work programs, always kind of recruiting, developing, training, and quality assuring my own team, which I absolutely loved doing. But there came a point where I was moving around different contracts and the love started to wane a little bit for what I was doing.
And this was back in Sheffield, is that right?
But no, this was actually in Newcastle.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I moved after New Zealand. I came straight back to Newcastle because I had to move back into my parents'
Because I
house.
actually never knew you were from Newcastle. It's funny because one of my previous guests pulled me up about my accent, and we kind of went through the whole story about how. So I was born and raised in Liverpool, and I went away to uni, then travelled around a bit. But it's Newcastle also has a very strong accent traditionally, so I never picked that up. But it's good to kind of add it into the story, I guess.
Yeah. I've only got a mild accent. I think if have a few drinks and it comes out a bit more. But neither of my parents are Geordies, so
that's probably what it
my
is.
dad was always quite into kind of standard English and would sort of encourage me, I would say, just to not have a really strong accent.
I had the same, and actually it was a really funny one. It's sad in some ways, but almost I wanted to talk about it just because I think it would have resonated with me. I'm 36 now, so 18 years ago. But I was told that if I wanted to do well, and this time in construction, but it's true with anything, that at the time, I must admit, I did have a pretty strong Scouse accent. And it was being told that, look, rightly or wrongly, people will judge you for it. And actually, if you want to progress to wherever you want to progress to, it's something to be aware of, just in case it ever hampers you in the future. So one of the things I found when I went to Sheffield was because I was thrown into a mix of different people from who I was used to. From who I grew up, it was a much more affluent, I guess, kind of background and cross-sector of people that I now class as friends, and I'm now very much middle class. I have this debate with my wife all the time, but it was a whole different experience for me, and I think almost just as wanting to kind of fit in, if that makes sense. I both actively toned it down, but it just happened over a few years. So it's interesting. I've never actually met anyone else that kind of felt the same, or I guess your dad said the same to you?
I think it was more my dad. I don't ever remember sort of trying to tone down an accent or not pick an accent up.
Okay.
I also grew up bilingual, so I didn't just speak English at home. And
what's the other language?
Estonian.
Oh wow.
Oh, which
cool. Very cool.
I'm currently brushing up on and lockdown because I haven't actively used it for actually about 20 years, which kind of bit me on the ass because I realised that I've lost my ability to speak it fluently.
So is that your parents' kind of background?
My mum's Estonian, yes.
Oh, cool.
And my dad's English.
Oh, cool. No, it's very cool. So you come up to Newcastle. You go into a career that maybe wasn't for you, and then how did that kind of evolve into doing what you're doing now?
So my business partner and I decided that we wanted to have our own business and have more flexibility and freedom in the long term. I mean, it's still a work in progress, and it takes longer than you think, but that's still the kind of the vision, the goal. And we decided that we understand training, especially my business partner is an absolute genius when it comes to being able to engage an audience, being able to train people, design a training course and package. And a lot of the time, when people go on training courses, they might be trained by an expert in a subject matter, but not necessarily by someone who gets how to train, how to design that course and get the information over in a way that really makes sense to people and kind of fires them up and gets them passionate about the subject as well.
I love it. No, I get it, because it's the same thing that I'm trying to think how to phrase it, but I completely get what you're saying. So it's almost where you have people that technically know this stuff, but they're not communicators. They never actually take people on the journey with them, or they don't know how to teach, if that makes sense. So for instance, one of my friends is a teacher, and he at schools obviously are very good at teaching, but they know about different people learning different ways, and you do different things, and very few, I say very few, no, I'm going to go with very few kind of business-based related B2B type courses tackle that in the same way. So I think it's great to hear someone that does it, and then applying it to especially something that's so important. I think people often underestimate the ability, which is the people side of coaching people and training people and stuff. So that's very cool. So carry on. Sorry.
So it was really born out of a passion for a subject that we feel is really important, because we spend a lot of time in the great outdoors, and you need to be quite self-sufficient if you go out into remote areas away from the emergency services, and a passion for training existing that people can really understand and get into, rather than be bamboozled by someone who's a subject matter expert but doesn't know how to convey simple principles about how you assess a situation, how you manage a first aid incident, for example.
Can I ask, and I think I know the answer from when we spoke at whenever it was at NatWest, and we had a kind of catch up. It was the first time we properly kind of met. Did you, growing up, did you have were you involved with guides or scouts? I can't quite remember. If not,
I did attend guides for a short amount of time, but I didn't really take it that seriously. Because I never did brownies. I just went straight to guides for some reason.
Cool. Because we used to do loads of first aid competitions, and it was really funny. But you were taught. I'm trying to think how old we would have been. I was the sixth, and I think it was scouts. So I was probably 16 or so. So we're not quite at the kind of ventures or that tending to explorers or whatever it was. But yeah, so it was always, we used to have these first aid competitions either at the scout camp I mentioned before called Torre Vale, or at different scout baits, huts, whatever. So basically your team on a bicycle would ride around the different, basically around the county, and at each base there was like a scene, and you had to assess all the first aid and approach it when you look in, make sure there's nobody there, and assess the scene and decide what to do. And I used to love it, and it's funny just to see someone, well, I guess we'll probably touch on it later, but it's how you probably started to learn a lot of this stuff just through your own preparation for outdoorsy kind of stuff a long time ago, and it's how you can just learn to evolve your passions and stuff that you love doing into different things. And again, especially for kind of what you're talking about, the idea or the concept to try and build a business which gives you the lifestyle that you love doing, but actually it ticks all the boxes, is in many ways the kind of the dream. So tell me about the business. Tell me about everything you do.
Everything. Well, life-saving training delivers tailored, environment-specific first aid training that actually works in the real world, because honestly, otherwise, what is the point? If people don't have the skills and confidence at the end of their course to sort of feel empowered to help others, to get involved, to manage situations, then really it's just a tick box exercise of going through the motions to get a certificate to be compliant at work, for example, but it just doesn't serve a purpose in our communities. So that's what life-saving training is all about, is firing up the passion in people to think, well, you know what, this is a skill that, yes, I might need in the workplace, I also need it at home. I also need it when I'm just out and about doing my shopping, because, you know, we've got really low rates in the UK of people completing first aid courses and also actually having the confidence to use those skills.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's why life-saving training exists, and we'll get really good feedback from our customers all of the time, consistently saying that, you know, they've been doing first aid training for say 20-30 years and feel like they've learned more on a life-saving training course than they have over all of those years put together.
So would it be, I'm just trying to set the scene, and almost, because again, if anyone watches this, it's, so would it is it generally like a 1-day course, and do you come to them or people come to you?
So most of the courses that we do are on the premises of businesses. So they might have, say, up to 12 people at once that need training, maybe as part of their induction or just as part of the renewals that a workplace needs to have. Most of the courses that we deliver are 1 day.
Okay.
First aid courses, but we've got a range of courses from sort of half day through to 3-day first aid at work, and also 4-day sort of advanced first aid courses that goes beyond that kind of normal workplace standard.
Okay, no, okay, because it's that balance of where so I get to work with quite a lot of businesses, which is good, and I've never met a business owner that doesn't genuinely kind of want to look after their staff. Mm-hmm. And I remember once in a former employer there was an incident and nobody was hurt, but it basically, I won't even go into what it was, but it was a near miss, I guess. But my heart sank. It was that balance of just, and it's almost where, for any business owner or business manager, I guess, I know I would just want to know that my team is looked after, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And again, it's a funny one that obviously at the moment we've got kind of COVID-19 and everyone's looking about how obviously you've got social distancing, you've got cleanliness kind of stuff and that kind of thing. But I don't actually worry, but I want people to acknowledge that actually, some of the potentially more serious, or put it this way, immediate accidents that could happen, it's almost how you can mitigate against them. And actually one of the things that I kind of cross my mind as well is that when I speak to business owners about I always ask them, all of their challenges, what do they face, that kind of thing. But I think, again, a lot of them are actually into the outdoors. They love doing all the same stuff you do. Mm-hmm. But actually, a lot of them, most companies have like a budget for team building type stuff. And actually, I think it would actually be an excellent team building exercise to combine that with life-saving training, because you're going to get all the benefits of people being out of the office, doing stuff together that's fun, it's interactive, whatever. But actually they're learning something useful for their friends, their family, their, everything as well. So if that's ever a kind of good business development tip, I think there's a real market there, because if you can ever offer something that people both want and actually want to pay for, because everyone has a set amount of money in the kitty for an away day, I think it's like a double win.
Definitely.
So what kind of clients do you normally work with?
Well, it's quite a range of clients, from schools, offices, manufacturing firms, people who work in the outdoors. They might be climbing instructors, canoeing instructors, individuals, small business owners as well, big hotel chains, entertainment, retail.
So everyone, because
it's a long list.
but that's good, because again, obviously this is kind of a business related kind of show type thing, and with any company or any business, you always want the maximum addressable market that you could potentially go for. So the fact that most businesses involve people, and actually, arguably, in theory, you have a very wide market to go for, which is an exceptionally good thing rather than having a super niche product. So actually, I think it's a very good business model to kind of be in, if that makes sense. And again, it's applicable to everyone at every different size. So now I think it's cool. In terms
of are always tailored. I mentioned a little while ago that the courses are tailored and environment specific. So yes, you can take a 1-day first aid course and deliver it kind of in an off-the-shelf style, but that doesn't necessarily meet the needs of the customer and the workplace. So all of the courses that we deliver are always specific to the environment and the people that it's for, so that it does actually work for them.
No, that's cool. I think it's very cool. And it's great to have a business that kind of follows your passions as well. That it's, so for instance, with my job, I love working with companies and solving problems, whatever the problem is, trying to figure out why they're not making money or whatever. But actually, I love all the creative stuff, even though it goes horribly wrong most of the time, stuff like this. But actually, I guess it's the same with you, is that I don't think I can wangle doing outdoorsy stuff more, but it's, no, it's great to kind of, I guess I'm quite envious of what you do and just the ability to earn a living whilst kind of being outdoors and that kind of thing. So when we met up, I guess it was officially first time, but we met at the NatWest Incubator.
Yep.
Can I ask, are you both part of that? And then what is it?
Yes, so I've been part of the NatWest Accelerator program previously. I've been involved in the community ever since, based out of that hub. It's a fantastic environment to be part of. And just very recently, as in last month, I've rejoined the program, because the business moves along. You find yourself in a different place to where you were a couple of years ago, and it's always good, I think, to assess where you're at, where are you going, what's your vision, what's your end point. And sometimes, you can lose sight of that, or you don't always know, or it feels a bit unclear. But it's so worth taking the time out of just doing the do, and I sit back, look at the bigger picture, and keep figuring that stuff out. And it does change. It is dynamic.
So is my obviously wrong perception was that it was just for like startups, like right at the start of your journey? Is that not the case?
It is open to startups and established businesses looking to just get to the next level, to grow.
Oh, cool. So I'm just asking you because I genuinely don't know the answer. I'm quite interested. Myself, a business, whatever, they're feeling a bit stuck, or they just want a bit of support. They then do they just drop in and speak to someone, and then how does it kind of work? And the reason I ask is that it's to help. There might be someone watching this that actually thinks I could use that. So I think it'd be quite
definitely. So at the minute, it's being run virtually. So we have kind of workshops that we can drop into that are run on Zoom, and there could be like, say, 60, 70, 80 people all attending these workshops. And then you can go into like different breakout rooms, chat with smaller groups. So the workshops could be on things like building your vision, developing a pitch, being clear and succinct about what you do. There'll be workshops on sort of developing team, on your finances, getting funding. So there's lots of information and support to tap into. But you also are allocated a coach.
Okay, cool.
So once a month, you have a proper sort of catch up with a coach who gets into the nitty gritty of your business and is there to ask challenging questions and get you to think, and together you'll set some actions that you want to work on. So, okay, develop the vision a little bit more, or, oh, I've had this idea, but I'm not sure if it's going to work. Okay, so do some research on this. And then it just means that you're accountable to someone as well, because it's very easy when you work for yourself or in a small team, you're a business owner, to kind of go, oh, I'll get around to that. I'll do it at some point. But often the emails keep pinging, the phone keeps ringing, and that can easily take over. And it does, and it needs to, because they're your customers. But it's absolutely brilliant to have time scheduled in to the diary to look at the bigger picture.
Oh, cool. Very interesting. And then I guess you pay for that, or is it part of a NatWest like funded thing? I'm just trying to get a feel. Again, you don't have to tell me how much, but just to, I actually am quite interested. But I just didn't.
Yeah, no, you should definitely apply. And amazingly, NatWest offer it for free. So thank you, NatWest.
Wow. Okay. Now I must that because I must admit, with one of the things that I see quite a lot is that my main customers are companies that are £1 million plus. So they're at a certain size, probably going for a while, and they're looking to grow and take the next level, but they're fairly established. And a lot of the kind of mentoring stuff that I do with people that are they're into their journey, but they're not quite where they want to be yet. And actually, you know, it's great to be able to direct them to somewhere like that. And to say that that's free is absolutely bonkers, but in a very
and
good
NatWest
way.
have, NatWest do have different programs for different business sizes. So, you know, they've got that, I think, pre-accelerator. So if you're just an idea and you want to develop it, then the accelerator program for more established businesses looking to grow. But then I think that they do also have the scale up program. So businesses with a turnover, I think it's $1 million plus, get even more tailored support for them. And yeah, big plug for NatWest here, because it is a really good program. We've benefited a lot from it and really appreciate the ongoing support.
This isn't a sponsored post, and this wasn't planned, by the way.
I'm not actually being sponsored by NatWest for this, but I'm genuinely grateful for the support that we do receive.
Yeah, cool. That's good. So before we kind of had the call, we agreed that I think it'd be quite interesting to talk about issues that some small businesses have. And again, I think it's just good to kind of just spitball it. And this, you know, isn't necessarily about you, but it's just about different things that, you know, I think, again, a lot of people who go through their own journey, when they reach out to me, that often that they worry that everyone else is doing this brilliant thing, that everyone else's life kind of seems perfect, when often that is your LinkedIn stroke Instagram perfected kind of feed or whatever. That actually, you know, often, you know, people do struggle for different revenue and stuff. So for I guess some of the people that you might know, either from the incubator or not or whatever, what kind of things do they normally kind of struggle with?
Time is a big one.
Okay, good.
You know, and that's something that I struggle with as well, is, you know, going back a few years, working with a large team of people in different departments, you know, there was always someone allocated to certain tasks that needed to be done. But when you're a small business or you're just starting out, you suddenly find yourself sort of needing to wear lots of different hats, try and figure out how you manage finances, how you do bookkeeping. And yes, of course, you can outsource a lot of work, use freelancers, and kind of build a team around you like that. But a lot of businesses, when they start up, are cash strapped, so you don't necessarily want to spend lots of money on lots of different experts. So you sort of fumble your way through for a bit sometimes, trying to figure it all out. And then, you know, you end up kind of probably doing a bit too much time on admin, a bit too much time on bookkeeping, and then not actually growing your business.
I think that's because I don't know what I expected you to say. I don't know if it's more to do with you know, contacting customers or driving a pipeline or whatever. But actually, I think time management is very true, because I found myself pretty busy. That, you know, even things like I've started to investigate into QuickBooks. That prior to now, or even currently now, I've always done all my own invoices. I do it by hand. Because again, I don't have a huge volume of customers. But again, even if it saved me a few hours a month, it's probably going to be worth it, because it's only like £8 a month, isn't it? So I think, yeah, you're right. It's a good one, that almost with it's being able to pick people's brains about what kind of stuff can they access that solves what they have. Does that make sense? Definitely, so actually, yeah. I never even thought of I had a chat with a guy called James Allen earlier on, who I met at the Barclays Tuss Park kind of thing, and he was asking me about live stream and stuff, and cameras and lights and whatever. But again, I think almost having a portal or something, just to kind of, you know, different people are good at different things. How have you done that? Where did you buy it from? What was good? And it's that kind of peer network, I think, is massively valuable. So no, it's cool. And then related as a seamless segue to that, so you've started to do more video to kind of promote the business, I've noticed. I was going to ask, how's that going?
Well, it always makes me squirm a little bit, I have to say. But you know, I don't want to do too much video, but I do like doing some, and I think it really does help your reach, and people like to see an actual person rather than just the written word.
Yeah,
so I think it's a balance.
But it's just one of my big things is that in video you can kind of get a feel for someone's their persona, their background, their mannerisms, and that kind of thing, because there's loads of people I'll watch and I can't stand them, and it's almost where, okay, I'm not going to buy your service, And I think it's a good way to, I guess, for any, I guess, small business owner, but actually anyone, it's almost just, I think you can get a lot of personality across.
Mm-hmm.
And have you found that it's led to any extra work or profile reach, or people more interacting with your posts, or about the same?
Definitely profile reach, and interactions with posts does go up when there's video involved.
Cool. No, cool.
Which in turn does lead to helping to generate leads as well, and keeps building that pipeline. And videos are more likely to be shared, which then you reach more people that didn't necessarily know about you in the first place.
Sorry, I just accidentally made the camera move. I didn't mean to. I was trying to get to my questions so I can see what to ask you next. See, again, but this is part of the learning curve. That I'm sorry again if this, it is what it is, but we're all in it together, so it's fine. So what's kind of next for the business? Obviously, we're in a very strange position at the moment that obviously nobody really knows what's going to happen next. But almost both with or without COVID, what's the dream for yourself and your business partner?
So we're well established in our region, but we'd love to kind of grow that reach across other regions of the UK and kind of step out of running the business day to day and kind of doing delivery quite so much to kind of being still very much involved in the business, but involved in a sense that you're strategizing with your team and you've got people working with you who really get what the business is all about. So in a way, like, you're not just the essential cog in the wheel. You're part of the team, but it's not so much reliant on a lot of the stuff that we're doing. We've got so many ideas and kind of not enough time to get them all done. So busy working on sort of timelining different ideas and what might work, what's best to focus on as a priority, what can maybe wait till next year. Like, for example, really want to do more charitable work. I already do a lot of charitable work in my volunteer role, but kind of linked more closely to the business, would like to establish another charity.
Oh, wow. Establish a charity.
Yeah.
And also,
I've got tons of time casual. As it is, so why not just establish a charity as well.
Where else do you volunteer? Do you want to tell us about
with North of Tyne Mountain Rescue Team.
Oh, cool.
Which
I was going to ask what they do, but it's obvious kind of what they do.
And mountain rescue's got a little bit quieter at the minute. There's less people going out into the outdoors, so the number of call outs has really reduced. But in kind of normal times, mountain rescue can take up quite a lot of spare time in terms of attending training, attending call outs, and just keeping on top of your skills.
Oh, cool. It's when I'm trying to think how to describe it without it coming across badly. But when I was leaving my former job and I knew I was going to have some gardening leave to then before I set this up, I actually applied to some of the local food banks, and I wanted to do more voluntary work, and they never got back to me. And I was like, oh. But it is the kind of thing that I think for me, because I'm now 7 months since launching, so officially it was the end of October when I kind of went public. So I'm now in May. So 6-7 months. I'm still in the kind of ramp up phase, and I'm getting busier and busier. But almost, I guess, the dream would be to get to the point where I'll be able to kind of 4 days a week. It'd be quite nice. And it'd be an intensive 12-hour day, 4 days a week, but with that kind of point. And then actually have time for something like volunteering, I think would be very cool. Just to kind of, I'll ask you a question then. So, like, what do you feel you get out of like volunteering?
I absolutely love the teamwork that's involved in mountain rescue. So it's a way of volunteering, which I really believe in as a way of supporting communities. Everyone can do something that helps communities in one way or another. But mountain rescue is a way that just brings together lots of different interests and passions. So being in the outdoors, there's a lot of skills that I've honed over the last sort of 15 years of spending time in the outdoors. And it also brings the passion of helping people together. I spend a lot of time up mountains, and if I was to have an accident, then it's great to know that the voluntary service of mountain rescue exists across all of the UK.
Yeah.
And someone would come and rescue me if I needed to. So it's that sense of giving back as well. And I would expect to be rescued, so I'm happy to give up my time to also help rescue someone who might need it.
No, it's cool. I've just finished reading Ranulph Fiennes' book, who's classed as one of the world's most successful adventurers. And some of the stuff that he's done over the years is just absolutely bananas. And it's crazy. But actually, I think there's a huge economy on adventure expedition type stuff. And I think, again, as a potential spin out of your business to do that safely would actually be to take out people and do stuff and almost get paid to do it, or do the training like up the mountain. I don't know, that might be a really bad example, but it's the kind of thing that I would happily both pay to both be trained and, I'm not going to say have a day out, but have the adventure side of it as well. And I think it's almost quite funny that with but I like to like just think out loud with different things. But no, I think it's kind of very cool. So one of the things that I always ask all of the kind of different guests and stuff is, as you've kind of gone through your career and kind of gone through to where you are, can I ask what's like the best piece of advice you ever had?
So is this really related to career or just in general?
It doesn't matter. Anything in general.
So I quite often find this kind of question quite difficult, if I'm honest. But I was having a bit of a reflection about any kind of poignant moments that have stood out to me, and one really was when I came back from traveling, and I'd had such a great time, and I was now faced with living back in the UK, back at the parents' home, where you think, oh, I've gone back in time, and I was just kind of finding my feet, thinking, what am I doing? And the home life at the time was also a little bit of a struggle. But a good friend to me at the time like read out a quote, and I'm not really into like quite a lot of, sort of cheesy quotes, but this one did stand out to me, and it was something along the lines of like, there's no point worrying about things you can't control.
Yeah.
Focus instead on the things that you can control and actually change, and develop the wisdom to kind of differentiate the two situations as well. And I think, now that Facebook exists, you see all of these kind of inspirational quotes and memes all the time. But this was kind of pre-Facebook, and that really kind of set me off on a bit of a track to kind of not sweat the small stuff and just not spend too much time worrying, and it's something that I'm still working on now, and kind of, but feel like I have achieved a sense of like calmness of like, okay, it is what it is, and don't fight something that you can't change, like COVID. I can't change COVID or get rid of it, so to a certain extent you just kind of got to roll with the situation and be pragmatic, be nimble, adapt, but ultimately there is no point getting really worried about it.
Honestly, I think that's good for both life and business. And I guess one of the questions would almost be, do you think that's an age stroke wisdom type thing? Because I think this as well is that almost so I'm a completely different person to who I was 10 years ago or when I was at uni. And it's not that I was, sometimes you look back and you think, oh, why did I do that or whatever. But again, it was just, most of it was just naivety or whatever. That I never did anything bad with intent to do anything bad, but it was almost where, I think sometimes you kind of, I've definitely found that as I've got a bit older, you see more of the grey in things. So it's not just black and white. There's a whole nuance to different things. And then again, no, I think that's a really good one. And then kind of related to this, that if you were to give advice to your kind of younger self, what would it be? And this can be any age, anything you want.
Yeah, it's interesting what you were just saying actually about kind of you've changed over the years. And it's easy in hindsight to kind of say like, oh well, I would have said to my younger self, like, don't worry so much about having to have a set career plan or having to be like mega successful straight out of uni, or don't worry about what people think about you. Yeah, like those kind of things. You think, well, if I could just go back and tell my younger self these things, great. But isn't it also about figuring these things out for yourself? And you don't necessarily want to just go back and give yourself some advice that might detract from that journey.
Yeah, because it's when almost some of the, I think part of the reason why I'm a different person now to who I was when I was 24 is almost because of the bad things that happened and the pain and stuff that you go through, that you learn from it and you adapt and you change, and almost, so I'm doing something now that, I might still fail at it, but I'm enjoying the ability to try, if that makes sense, as where, it's, I wouldn't have always had the bravery to do it, you know what I mean? And then actually one of the big things that almost got me was almost, I knew when I was trying to decide whether to take another job or not, or try and do something on my own, was actually I prefer to try and fail but give it everything I've got, even doing really bad live streams, to than kind of half-arse it or worry too much about what other people are going to think and whatever, and then end up regretting it and being like, oh, why didn't I do this, why didn't I work hard, and I think it's but I think that comes with time and age and different things.
Definitely, yeah. I think you've got to just your wisdom grows a little bit as you get older, and I think a bit more of like inner confidence as well.
No, cool.
Just crack on, try stuff, and you don't worry so much about what other people think.
Yeah, okay. So is there anything you would like to kind of plug or talk about, or anything you've got going on over the next kind of few months that you'd like to talk about?
Actually, just a plug for the next couple of weeks would be awesome, because we launched a crowdfunding campaign just last week that is about getting more people to have really basic first aid skills, because a lot of the time people end up doing first aid because it's part of their job, but no one really learns it just because it's a great life skill to have. Going forward, it will appear on school curriculums, but up until now that's not been the case. So that we do in the UK have really low rates of people knowing how to help save lives, how to deal with a cardiac arrest, for example. So yeah, we set up a crowdfunding campaign to really kind of drive the attendance rates, the engagement rates of people in our communities, to actually learn the skills and be able to put them to good use. So we've got sort of half-day sessions planned for the latter part of this year, and we can be totally flexible on dates, obviously, as the COVID situation develops and we find out more. But yeah, we just really believe more people should know how to help save someone else's life. So it's over on Crowdfunder. So I can always send you the link.
Yes, and I'll tag it.
Running for another couple of weeks, and we just absolutely love support for that, and it's really worthwhile, and extra sort of pledges will also go into the charitable work that we're looking to set up as well.
Oh, cool. So how does it work? So almost people go on and donate money, and then do they get to take part in a course, or is it for other people, or?
Yeah, so either for themselves or for other people, but we've got a few rewards on there, like an everyday first aid course, and also a space on a HSE compliant emergency first aid at work course. So that ticks a lot of boxes for people going into workplaces and needing to be a first aider. And by going through Crowdfunder, then they get a little bit of a discount as well, off our sort of normal rates. So yeah, it's about getting more people to get involved in first aid so that our communities become safer places in the Northeast. But also people can be rewarded by getting a nice little discount for being super organised and planning ahead.
No, that's very cool. So thank you for your time today. Hopefully it's been relatively short and sweet, but actually I have no recollection on time. So whether it's been long or short, I don't know. I've
Fine.
always really liked everything that you do. I like the way that you both brand the business, but the way you and your business partner come across, that it's very hands-on and real, and it's something that I get, if that makes sense. It's hard to put a phrase on it more than that, but I like kind of what you're doing. I think you had a great story to tell, and you have a great story to tell in terms of how I think there's a lot of people who are on their own journey that will relate to where you're at and what you're going through, and almost where you're kind of looking to get to, and then also the what you actually physically do and the ability to hopefully help other people, save people's lives is massive. That it's the kind of thing that although there will be obviously a cost to do it, because of course there should be, because it takes your time and expertise and whatever, but actually it's definitely money well spent, because if you ever needed it, it's priceless. So Helena, thank you for your time. Hopefully this hasn't been too painful. I know you said you don't like doing video. uh, I've tried a few things with this live stream, some of which didn't work, like having both earpieces in at the start. I couldn't hear anything, so I had to take one out. But it's just that for me, this is all part of the journey, that with friendly faces and different people, we're all kind of learning together. And definitely kind of please stay in touch for the future, and if I can ever do anything to help and push stuff, I kind of definitely will do as well.
That's awesome. No, honestly, thank you so much for having me on your live stream and for chatting. It's always just great to connect with people, especially during lockdown, and keep seeing some familiar faces.
Cool. Well, stay safe. Stay safe. Gonna stay in touch, and I'm
Definitely.
sure I'll see you around at the next event when we're allowed to go out again. So
Perfect.
cool. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.